Hey folks, welcome to our webinar on sharing your geospatial data. I'm assuming that you're here because you have a challenge or a need, and hopefully in this webinar we'll cover off some of the basics about sharing data, sharing geospatial data, and give you some examples of how you can actually do it using your own two applications as an example. I'm Scott Campbell.
And I'm Brad Ashley. And before we get too far into this, just a couple housekeeping things. We are able to take questions through the chat, so you should be able to see that. And if you have any questions, please put those in there. We have a couple polls that we're going to be running as we go through this, so please participate in those if you can. Answer a few of them have a few different options for choices. And then we did send out an email a couple days ago with some further information on Scott's blog that goes through sharing, but a lot more information than we're going to be covering here in the webinar, as well as some of the sample packages that can be created from both Engine and Encompass. So if you didn't have a chance to take a look at those materials prior to the call, we recommend that you go back after the fact and take a look at those, and we'll be referencing some of that material as we go through. So we're going to start off here with a quick poll on data sharing. So hopefully you can see that poll and you can fill that out.
And one of the big reasons for asking a question like this is, of course, you know, it's knowing what you're doing right now for sharing helps us figure out how we can help you with the problems of sharing as we go forward.
Give you a couple more seconds here to get answered.
We got a couple of others. I'm curious to know if what the other is. Guys, if you want to pop in the chat and just type in what the other is, I'm really curious as to what the other... We probably structured the question a little bit wrong because you can't fill that in, but I am curious to know what the other way of sharing, if it's not hard drive and not a link. Well, I guess another software program, yeah, not Encompass or Engine. That's probably what it is.
Hey, thanks. We'll move on and we'll do another one of those polls here in a bit. I'm going to pass it over to Scott to speak a little bit about the sharing side of things.
Yeah, and I just see, I think it was Mark said Pix4D, cloud, and GeoSync. Yeah, so another cloud. I think that's a cloud sharing one, Mark. Yeah, so we'll cover off some of that. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so when it comes to sharing, a couple of key points. I mean, this may be preaching to the choir, but sharing has got to be easy, because if sharing is hard, then you're not going to do it. You know, and likewise, you know, you can't have special software, not only for yourself, but if it requires special software on the client side. And I actually can't remember if Pix4D requires special stuff on the client side or not to share. If it's user only, I actually don't know. Maybe Mark, if yeah, okay, if it doesn't require, yeah. So avoiding special software, especially for the client, is really, really useful. And of course, keeping in mind the fact that the client is not technical. In many cases, sometimes they are, but in many cases, they're not technical. So we keep those in mind as we go through this this sharing. Now, what I'm going to do next is hand it back to Brad, because he's got another poll.
Quick poll here. Just like the last one, look for it and make a couple answers if you can. This one is more around the types of data that folks are sharing, and you know, just getting a sense of the different varieties of data that are being shared. Some of these data sets are huge. You know, the bigger the data, the harder it is to share. So that's why we're sort of interested. Again, we'll have another few seconds here for answers.
Yeah, quite the variety in this case. It's right across the board.
Okay, thanks. So I'll pass it back to Scott to speak more about the different types of sharing that we're going to talk about here.
Yep, so I'm going to start off with cloud-based, because cloud-based is the most complicated, and then I'll get into local first. So typically in cloud-based, whether it's our engine application or any other cloud-based application, The core is what I've just drawn inside this red box here. The core is your application, which sits on a server, and your data, which also sits on a server. Now, in our case for Encompass, which is our cloud-based app, which Brad will get into in a second, we can actually split the application server and the data server. And what do I mean by that? So, Mark, you're using Pix4D Cloud. I'm not sure where that sits. I'm guessing that probably sits with Pix4D. Our application server actually sits wherever you want to put it. If you want to put it in Amazon, your own instance of Amazon, you can put it in your own instance of Amazon. Your data could also sit in your Amazon instance, or it could sit wherever you want it. You could put it in Azure if you wanted to, or if you've got your own big ass server back on your own network, you can put it back there. But the key thing is that there's this central piece, this central application that allows your cloud sharing. The other thing that cloud-based applications require is you need a user who gets the admin privileges. So somebody's got to manage that application, and the reason is because you then have to manage your users on the other side. So most cloud applications allow you to grant different levels of access to your application. So you can have, regular users, you can have partially restricted users, or you can have no restricted users. Again, I'm not sure about Pix4D, but Encompass has has a restricted user, which is a view-only user. Brad will show you how that works out. But the central idea here is that, okay, this is cloud-based sharing, and I know cloud is a huge thing these days. And if you read my blog article, I talk about how the pendulum goes back and forth. The pendulum is definitely in the cloud-based sharing camp. But it can get a little complicated, and I'll show you a much simpler way to do it, and that's local first. Local first is just a desktop application. It's a computer geek name for what you do locally. And you'll see in the middle, there's no application. I mean, there's email, but there is no specific application required to do the sharing. Likewise, because there is no central app, you have a user, you don't have an admin. Right? And so basically an example of local first would be our engine, which Brad is going to show you how that works. And so the user just uses that app to push out a package through the email server, and it can go out then to anybody. It can go out to stakeholders. They don't have to have the application. They can just view it. And of course, it can go out to other users of the local first application. In our case, it's engine. So the setup for a local first is extremely simple. And I think we'll see a pendulum swing back towards local first in the coming 5-10 years. And then it'll go back towards cloud, and then it'll come back to local first. And that's just sort of the way it goes. So before I hand it back to Brad to show you how this works, I'm going to quickly do a recap. This is a very short synopsis of what I did in my blog post. And again, if you don't have the email, or you lost the email, or you lost the link, let us know, or just go to our website and you'll see the blog post. But basically, if you look at Engine, which is a local first, and other local first is, cost is a huge advantage. They tend to be, a lot of cases, they're perpetual licenses, they're not SaaS. So your long-term cost is usually quite low, and they're super simple. And because you're downloading data, you can use them offline. So if Brad, for example, is going to go work up in some remote mine or some oil sands production facility, no internet connection, he downloads it, he can take the data, and he can use it offline as need be. The flip side, cloud-based applications like Encompass or Pix4D, really good at data storage efficiency. So with these large, terabytes upon terabytes of data, there's only one copy, so it makes them really efficient at data storage. And they're great at real time. So, let's say Brad is up collecting data at the remote mine. As soon as he gets back to internet and uploads the data, everybody on his team or everybody who has access has real-time access to that. So there's a lot more pros and cons to each. So I encourage you to have a look at the blog post and look at those pros and cons. And then if you got questions or comments on that, just give me a shout. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad. And Brad is going to start with desktop, which is the local first application because it's the simplest. So Brad?
Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, so I'll take you through how to share using our Solved Engine application, and then we'll get into the Encompass side. So let me bring up Engine here. We've got some data that we've loaded into the application. We want to start letting it, accessing it and viewing it. And so in this case, before you share, the one thing for sure is you want to make sure your data looks good. So we've recently come up with a data aligner tool that allows you to align the data and prep it. But once the data is in the shape that you want it to be for sharing, you go into Engine here and use the export function that's under tools. When it comes up, it'll tell you what you're going to be exporting. Obviously, the more data that you've brought into the application and you're sharing, the longer it can take for the export function. But here we've just got a single CSV and a single LiDAR file that we're going to be exporting. When you're doing the export, you want to give it a name, file location, and name that makes sense, something that's going to connect the dots on what you're doing. And then you hit the export command. It goes through, and what it's currently doing is batching up a file that is shareable, along with, to Scott's point that he made around special software, it includes a mini exe file that allows the end user to access the application. They don't have to go buy their own piece of software. They don't have to buy a version of our software. It's all packaged together. So here's the resulting package. I'm just zipping it up here. If you're moving it onto some sort of file share server, you may not need to zip it. But by zipping it, you're just ensuring that everything's going to go together. So what I like to do is use an email template when I'm sending these links out to folks. In this case, I'm using Gmail. Open up my email template. It tells me what I want to fill in, sample, some sample subject lines, content that I want to let the client know about. And really, you want to sit down with the client and figure out what they need. They might need, what kind of gear it was collected with, or the serial number, et cetera, all in this email. In this case, I've gone pretty generic. The project name, the date of the export, that's important because this is a static export. And so the data that I exported at this moment is what the client's going to have access to. If we all of a sudden do a change of the alignment, or we recolorize the point cloud, we're going to have to re-export that and share that link again. So once you've got all of the information in the email, pull in the zip file. In this case, I'm pulling it into Gmail, which instantly makes a Google Drive link. If your email does that, that's great. If it doesn't, there's many other options for getting that link or dropping it on a file share server. And then once you're ready, double check that the thing is connected, and then send it out. And so once I sent that to Scott, he can now just simply download it. The client at the other end is the same. Download the file. In this case, it's a pretty small file that we've got, and then extract the files that are within. And so inside that file, again, is that exe that we're going to open up here. And it's instantly going to allow the client to be able to see the data that you've collected and captured and shared it with the client. So we'll just let that catch up with us. So here we go. We've got our exe. And the only real difference between this and Engine is, it looks very much the same. It's basically the same application. The end user can still do measurements, and change certain things. The only primary difference is that they can't make any, bring in any additional data sets, and they also can't change the projection. One other option for sharing this data out in that file was a web folder. And so what we sort of speak to expert level on is you can actually put this on a web page. And so if you go to our solv.com webpage, check out Engine, you can see that you can embed this viewer inside of a web page. We've got a sample project up there, and it's just another option for getting it out to a client or getting it out to a stakeholder user group that maybe doesn't, you don't want to share all of the links with folks. So Scott, I'll let you cover off a few key points there.
Yep. So a couple of key points. We talked about easy to use and share. I think this certainly fits in that case. I mean, you drag and drop the file into an email. That's pretty easy to use. No special software. The downside of this method, as I said before, the data are not real time. That's why you got to version control this. By the way, a quick comment. Brad mentioned about zipping. I don't know if people are aware of this, but servers and email platforms and shared drives are notoriously bad with images. They compress and recompress and recompress. And so what you thought was a nice little image that you're trying to share can look terrible when you go to actually download it. The way around that is to zip it. Servers and email programs will not touch a zip file. So that's why we always zip everything that we send. And of course, if it's confidential, you can then put a password on the zip as well. But yeah, just a hidden tip, if you will, around JPEGs or any imagery. Yeah, other applications think that they can just take liberties with it.
Great point. All right, now I'm going to get into the Encompass side and speak to how different the cloud side is. So again, I'll bring up a demo here. This is the same data that we were just looking at, but now we're inside of Encompass. So this is on the web side. A few different options for sharing here. The first of which is inviting the client directly to the application. So what we're doing here is allowing the end user to come into the application. They'll be sent an email that invites them directly to the application. So I'm going in here and finding the project that I want to give Scott access to. I don't have to give the end user access to all of the projects, just simply the individual ones that I want to. The nice thing here is that I can also choose how long they have access to the project. So if I want to give them access for a couple days or a couple weeks, I can do that. And once you've invited them, they come up with an email that looks like this, that shows them, they've been invited to the application, and they'll be forced to create a password. So this is a really restrictive way of ensuring that they have access to the projects, but they don't have anything more than they need. So this is one of the options. The second option is to go back into the project here and create what we call as a bookmark. So this is a specific location in the data. It might be an intersection or an area of the project that you're interested in, or the client's interested in. In this case, I'm just giving it a name based on direction that I'm looking. But once you've created that bookmark, you can then share a link to it. You can edit it, change the name of it, etc. But you can copy that URL straight to a clipboard and paste it in an email. So, similar to what we did on the engine side, you can now give some information to the client, paste in the link, and send it out. But in this case, because it's not a static link, because to Scott's point, this data is real time. You don't really have to worry about what the date of the link share is, because at the end of the day, if you make a change to that data or that project, they're instantly going to have access to those changes. And we'll show you an example of that here in a minute. So once I've sent that email out to Scott, he can click on that URL that's been sent, and instantly he's in the project. The difference here is that you're going to see in the top right that he's in there as a view only user, which means, again, he can't change the data, change the project, delete anything. But he can still change the look and feel of the projects, do basic measurements, etc. The third option is, again, to embed this in a website. And so, again, solv.com, you can go into the Encompass page in this case, and you'll be able to see some of our example projects. We've got that same project, the municipal infrastructure, which is the Green Line project here in Calgary. And so you can see right here on the web page, you could show this to a client, you could show it to a prospect, you could show them, what data from your sensor type might look like. This speaks to that data sync and how live it is. Here from within this project, I'm gonna make a file that is currently private public. So we've got some asset tags that we've created around utility poles. I'm going to make those asset tags public. And once I do that, we're going to go back into the view only view back in the web page, and we'll refresh. So here we are back in the view only, hit refresh. And that user now will have access to those asset tags. You can see them now at the bottom of the utility poles. They can now click on them, see who made that tag. In this case, it was Kevin, created a pole asset tag. But instantly they have access to those updates. And that's, one of the biggest differences between the cloud and the local first is the fact that you can, as you go back and forth, the data is always real time in this version.
So the key points here is lots of benefits to cloud-based. The data are real time, as Brad just said, even sending it out to a fully restricted user, right? Somebody who's not part of the system. The data can be real time. However, on the downside, it does require an administrator. And there are a couple of other downsides as well. And again, I encourage you to go take a look at the blog article that we posted. I actually have a question, but I'll save it for I'll save it for the Q&A.
Sure.
Go ahead.
We recently had one of our clients write us and give us a testimonial about their use of our Encompass application, just on how easy it was to share with their client and ensure that they always have the correct application or the correct data through the application. I am going to do our last poll here on ease of use. So I'll launch that. So again, if you can go in and give us some ideas on that. I'm not sure if you folks did use the applications before. So if so, this will be an easy question. If not, then it'll, you won't be able to provide a ton of clarity, but it's an option nonetheless. All right, thank you very much. So I'll let Scott speak to a few tips and tricks that we found as we went through this, specifically as he went through the blog post writing.
Yep. Is the poll on your side?
It's done. Yep.
No, but is it in front of the PowerPoint? Because it's blocking my view of the PowerPoint.
It shouldn't be.
Okay. Oh, I see the problem. Never mind. Got it. Got it. Zoom. You'd think after 2 years of doing Zoom in a pandemic, it would all be ironed out. Okay, so a few tips and tricks. It kind of goes without saying. You would think it goes without saying, but before you share, your data need to be clean and well aligned and look presentable. I mean, it's like, if you were a tailor, you want your suits to be free of lint and clean before you have a client try them on. But I bring this up for a reason. We see tons of shared projects that are not clean. There's noise in them. They're not well aligned. And by aligned, I'm talking about, aligning, say, a point cloud with the imagery. So I gotta say, everybody should be checking to make sure the data are clean and well aligned. You think about how the data should be organized before you share it, in respect of how you want the person on the receiving end to use it. Like, are they going to be looking, is it an indoor project? Should it be organized by floors? Should it be organized by time? Should it be organized by project or geography? Just have a think before you share how you're actually going to organize your data before you share it. Version control, it may not be something that you think much about, but always think about, what version of data are you using and are you sharing? Even in the cloud-based one, you need to think about this, but more importantly for the local first. You saw Brad, name the file there. Version control, a very simple, it gets really complicated, but a simple version control can be as simple as the date, the name of the project, and the version of the data that you're sharing. So it could be, for example, 2021, important intersection, version 1. And then if you go back and you realign the data or you clean it up or you scan it again, you can give it the same name and then version 2. Or if the data is changed into a new date, right? But without that, without version control, you can get into some serious issues with, Well, Brad, what version are you looking at? I don't see that at all. So version control, we often don't think about it, but it is super, super important to remember, especially for local first. Sharing template, again, that's probably obvious that we don't think about. Again, it needs to be written from the receiver perspective. What do they need to know? What are the specific steps for accessing either a cloud platform or accessing the data that you just shared with them using a local first? And then hidden features, the key tip here is, of course, not just sharing with clients, but what about prospects? What about people that you want to reach out to sell your services to or to sell something to? And usually that's through a website, but it could also be through a package share or through a cloud-based share. But also don't forget about the tools that you have like websites, social media, things like that.
Great, Scott. For any of you on the call, if you are interested in testing these tools out, we have a pretty robust training and workflow options that can walk you through how to use this. We have sample data that you can use if you're not a data collector. But you should be able to go on our website and register for a free evaluation for 4 weeks of either or both of the applications. You can also send us an email at sales@solv.com, and we'll set you up from there. But at any time, if you or someone you know needs one of these applications, you can always go into the website and request an evaluation account.
Just a quick comment before you move on. All sellers are buyers and all buyers are sellers. So what Brad and I tried to do is, because we go through this all the time, people want to sell us stuff and we try stuff out. We said, well, what do we like? What do we like when we want to try something? And the answer came back as, sample data that we can play with. Better yet, sample data that matches the data that's in the training video so we can see if we're doing it the same way and get the same results. Documentation that we can turn to. So if you try this and you find ways that we can improve it, please let us know, because we're just like you guys. We're short on time and we want to get through these things as fast as possible.
A little bit on what we do. So we've been walking you through our commercial off-the-shelf softwares here for the last while. That's, obviously we have those two applications available. But we also do research projects. So if you have some data or some ideas around something that you might be able to do with a project, we can certainly look into that. We also do custom development. So if there is an idea that you have that comes to fruition and it makes sense to do, we can build it to build into our application or sit standalone. We're always interested in those types of projects. And then we of course do our training and support. That's a big piece of why folks enjoy working with us, is we're easy to get a hold of and we're very supportive on customer needs. So we
and of
are.
Course, I was going to say, and of course, I don't know any company that's going to say, "Oh, we're terrible at training support." But I do have to point out that that is one of our focuses.
Yeah, for sure. Things that are next. So we are hoping to do a few more webinars starting in 2022, which I can't imagine is just a couple weeks away. But we'll plan to do a webinar series starting with some Data Aligner, which is a new tool that we've released in Engine. Our object classification and identification for both LiDAR and imagery. Those are two new tools that are available. One's in beta, and so reach out and see what those are about. Also, the GIS and CAD integration side of things, being able to bring that data into our application and align it. And then we're open to suggestions. So if there are any ideas or thoughts on other webinars that we can help with or make available, let us know and we'd be happy to look at them. Questions and answers. So Scott, you've got some questions that came in.
So, Mark, you were asking, I didn't quite understand it. Sorry, I'm reading off the side of my other screen here. Let me pull this over. So you're saying you were assuming it was going to be written to a USB instead of emailing. It can be written to a USB for sure. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So the only at USB, SSD, basically it's a file. Email it, FTP it, USB it, SSD it. All those things, they absolutely all work.
And whatever way you currently share with your client, it's probably just as easy with this. Dropbox or some other file sharing platform. It's pretty easy to continue on with those.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing you said, Mark, was I think you said you didn't get a chance to try the share, if I've understand that correctly. So what we shared out with you guys is exactly what we would share with a client or what you would share with a client. So in case of the engine share, that's a data file that stays with you until you decide to delete it. So you can, Mark, at any time, you can go back and look at that if you haven't had a chance. Same with the link we sent out. Well, it's a little bit different. Brad could actually shut down the project. So that's one of the differences, again, between cloud and local. But that's live until, the cows come home, sort of
So we
thing.
changed the name of the project or something,
Till we change
which
the name of the project.
isn't frequent.
Not going to happen. So,
Yeah.
Mark, anytime you go have a look at those. Our intention of sending them out ahead of time is so that you can see how easy it actually can be on the receiving side. It's really easy to push out, but on the receiving side, it's super easy as well. All right, over to Brendan. Now, Brad, you might want to take this one. Further development of the Esri Web App Builder widget option.
Yeah, we haven't really taken that any further. It's still available. That's on the Encompass side. And so, yeah, we still do have an Esri widget there. Haven't really fully built that any further.
Yeah, have we had, I don't know that a lot of people have been talking about it. Did you have something in particular in mind, Brendan, that you're looking to use it for? How do I allow to talk? Here, I'll let you guys go live. I don't know why we didn't do that earlier. Yeah, just fill us in. Did you have something in mind that you were thinking about for that, or is it just a general question?
Just a general question. We did try it, I think, pre-COVID when it was in early development. So just wondering if it had made any other progress to build it into GIS applications.
Nothing further. We've had a couple clients that have tested it and it worked for their needs. But for the most part, it wasn't something specific that they were looking for. So
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And this doesn't help answer your question at all. But where we've been getting a lot of demand and people asking us, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Is around the object classification or the object identification. That's just going nuts. People are saying, hey, can you identify corrosion on windmill blades?
Welds or exactly.
Hey, can you identify bitumen in tar sands projects? What was the one that came in today? Oh, hey, can you identify welds inside storage tanks? Oh, hey, can you do this? Hey, so yeah, a lot of questions, and I think we're going to do a webinar on that in the new year as well, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So stay tuned for that. So it doesn't really answer your question, but sort of goes to lots of demand on object classification. Not a huge people talking about the Esri thing, but anything else? Any other questions, Mark? Did you have any other questions?
Oh, since you give me microphone access.
That's
no,
it.
I'm good. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the answers to all my little ranting.
Yeah, no, and it's all cool. And this is, I think, I don't know about you guys. I mean, obviously you showed up for a reason, but we were thinking this is one of the little niggly problems that people have. Like, how do you make it easy to share? And I don't know if we solved any problems for you, but we did want to do a webinar on this.
I mean, I work for a Autodesk and a Trimble reseller, so we're constantly dealing with scan data and different solutions for things like that. So this is just one of those that we're researching all the things that we can and trying the different types of so those other two solutions. I mean, we're a Pix4D reseller as well. That's why we use that one. That's why that one stood out. The other ones are things that we have tried, and I'll follow on the similar vein. Yours is the first I've seen that has this permission level via invite, which we really like, which is something we see on the Autodesk Construction Cloud or the Trimble Connect Cloud, we really like that. The ability to silo out permissions is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. We've got, it's something we could take up later if you want. We can go into what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 levels? Are we at 4 levels now on Encompass?
Yeah.
4 levels of permissioning on Encompass. And you know, and if you come across a different scenario and we need a fifth, you know, we're all ears. Quick question for you, Mark: are you guys sharing lidar and imagery data on your website as part of your sales process, or?
I mean, we have a couple little. We have, you know, I can send you guys our links to our website.
Yeah, sure, that'd be cool. Yeah.
We have a couple examples, but not really. Not really.
What we find there again, it comes back to the sharing. How easy is it? It's a pain in the ass to actually put project data up on your website.
Yes.
You know, you need a webmaster who's skilled in CSS and HTML, whatever, and it's a real pain in the ass. Now, I'm not saying ours is, you know, drag and drop simple, but because we provide the entire package in that engine share, it becomes a lot simpler. Or in the case of Encompass, which also does that, it's just an embedded iframe. So it becomes a lot easier to do. And of course, that's my point, right? If it's easier to do, you're going to do it more often. And in the case of those of us who are selling stuff, yeah, you get it out in front of your prospects. So if you want to talk about that more too, you know, we can talk about that more too.
I think, Mark, I think you guys are an Applanix reseller as well. And Applanix has a version of our Encompass on their embedded in their webpage for exactly that purpose of being able to show off what, you know, what a Tim's cart comes back with as far as data and such. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, that's it. I mean, happy to stay and chat and answer more questions, but I know everybody's busy. But if you think of something, like, just drop us an email at any time. Or I encourage you to take up the option of trying out the free evals too. Oh,
Great.
yep, I see. Yep, I see your link right there. I'll go take a look at that. Thanks, Mark. Okay, guys, thanks. We'll give you some time back in your day.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Scott.
See you later, guys.